The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
Well, we are coming to the end of the year, and decisions have to be made, not just about roster positions, but players who you may or may not want to re-sign. And what Cliff Kingsbury said about Deebo Samuel yesterday is telling in my mind. It really is. And I'll tell you this, Robert Griffin III, nobody gives him more grief than I do. But I'll say this about what he said on the Dan Patrick Show yesterday. It was insightful. There was information there which is worth perusing. And we will do that coming up here shortly as I pulled some of the comments that he came up with. I'm not buying the idea that his career ended because of injury. That seems to be a common narrative around here. No, that really wasn't the case. But anyway, it's worth talking about, and we'll get to that shortly. I might as well start with what Cliff Kingsbury said yesterday. The schedule is all cockamamie because they play on Saturday instead of Sunday. So yesterday, even though it was a Wednesday, was more like a Thursday, which means today they have their last really big practice, and then they'll have a walkthrough tomorrow, and then they'll play the game on Sunday. But the offensive coordinator, Cliff Kingsbury, who normally speaks on Thursday, spoke yesterday. And one of the questions he was asked, because it's been now 4 days of debate over whether or not Jaden Daniels should be playing in these last three meaningless games, the question was about, well, what if he were to play? How much of a difference would it make for his development?
Yeah, I think all in-game reps that you can get are valuable. There's no way you can simulate being out there and playing football. And so anytime you get those, you like to have them, but understand the situation. It just wasn't possible this year for him.
It doesn't seem like it to us, but you've been around Jaden more. Does it ever seem? Have you ever seen him have a lack of confidence because of what's going on? Do you ever worry about that as an OC?
No, I don't. I think these are things you have to go through as a young player. It's part of the deal, developing thicker skin and mental toughness through some of this adversity. But he's super competitive. He loves to play the game, and he'll be better for this and having to go through this and really manage it throughout the season.
Well, you hope that this year is an anomaly, that you have a season that was filled with injuries. Fortunately, nothing that's going to require surgery, but that you look at his career 10 years from now and go, oh, yeah, well, yeah, year two was a mess, but he got back from that and managed to stay healthy. And if you go off his college career, and I think this is significant, he played 5 years. He missed only 2 games during that period of time. And he took some hits last year, which, looked like they might be devastating hits. He did break a rib and came back and played from that. So maybe this is the year that he really sits down and looks at this season and said, yeah, I got to change the way I play, but I can't change it completely because some of what makes Jaden Daniels involves taking off and running and freezing the defense with play action and things like that. So, I think everybody needs to calm down about, oh, my God, look at this year. He only played 7 games. You can't count him on the future. Oh, did you see what Drake May is doing with New England? Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Caleb Williams is developing into a star with the Bears, and they're going to be in the playoffs. And yeah, okay. Just cool it on that. This I thought was more interesting from Kingsbury yesterday. Remember a week or so ago, he was asked about the Laremy Tunsil, the left tackle, and he said he went beyond expectations, and then said he's going to get paid. Which I don't know how Josh Harris felt about that, because Tunsil is going to be looking for a contract extension in the offseason. He's going to be going into the last year of his deal. And here's Kingsbury saying, yeah, pay the man. He kind of was given that opportunity with Deebo Samuel yesterday. Now, regarding his health, it's been actually pretty good. He missed only 1 game this year. He had a heel issue and missed 1, but has managed to post for the other 13 games, which is big, especially with this team, which has just been devastated by injuries. And his numbers are not overwhelming. He did catch 65 balls, 5 for touchdowns, and he's going to be 30 years old. And so the question is, do you bring him back on what would have to be a pretty significant deal? Kingsbury could have gone the Tunsil route here and said something along the lines of, oh, man, he's been something else. You got to pay the man. I thought his answer to what he's seen from Deebo this year was somewhat tepid.
Game plan to change is kind of what we feel like we need to do to maximize his role and use him the best we can. And I think he's done a nice job for us. He made some big plays. The way the season's gone, as you've seen, guys in and out of the lineup, it hasn't been what we would have hoped. And I think his usage, got changed because of that, but super competitive and has given us a nice spark at times.
Nice. Not overwhelming, not beyond expectations. Nice job. So I think that might be telling. Now, as to what they're going to do at wide receiver, they're going to have some holes. I can't believe they could possibly bring Noah Brown back. Noah Brown gave them 4 games this year and 5 catches. He missed the end of last season with injury. It's not his fault, but if you are an injured player, it's rare that you step out of that and don't get injured again. I know what I said about Jaden Daniels, but this is a receiver who was available because he couldn't stay healthy. So they're going to have to fill that spot, and whether or not they decide to bring Deebo back, I think is really a good question as to what's going to happen in the offseason. I does not sound, not that Kingsbury's going to make this call, but Kingsbury represents, I think, how the organization feels about him, and it's kind of yeah, nice, did a nice job. We moved him in and out. It's kind of tough for him. Guy who posts for 13 to 14 games on this team this year, that's got to be worth something. Also, in considering who to bring back next year, Von Miller, I believe, is 36 or 37. He's a Hall of Fame player. And he gave them, so far, 7 sacks. If he gets 3 over the last 3 games, he'll wind up with double digits. And that's significant for a guy who doesn't play that much. So if the contract is right, I'd like to see Von Miller brought back next year. And he said something about, how his approach is to football and why he's been successful at this stage of the game.
I'm a football player. I do other stuff well. I like to think that I'm a good father, stand-up comedian. Y'all supposed to laugh at that.
Ha ha.
Yeah, obviously I got to work on that. But, playing football is what I do. They do a really good job of keeping us fresh and healthy here with the Commanders. So I'm just taking advantage of my opportunity.
Sounds like he might be a good fit next year. I can't imagine Bobby Wagner comes back, so he kind of fills that veteran presence. A little different than Wagner, who's on the field all the time. But I would think that Von Miller comes back even at the age of 37. I think if the contract is right, and I can't imagine he's going to be commanding big money anyplace else, I would bring him back here next year. Terry McLaurin will be back, of course, with the contract extension that he signed with hopes that he will be healthy next year. And he's going through an end of season like too many of the seasons that he's been here in Washington. This is his 7th year. And aside from that second year where they finished 7-9 and made the playoffs, it's been mostly meaningless Decembers for him. But he's taking this as they go into the last 3.
Just because you have a certain finish at the end of one season doesn't guarantee what's going to happen the next season. I think really starting from the ground up each and every year is extremely important as a person, as a team, as a coaching staff, everything, because each year is so different. But we have a unique opportunity to be able to finish these games in our division with a sense of some sense of accomplishment. The ultimate goal is out of reach, but doesn't mean we can't leave with something. So as Denzel Washington said in that meme, I'm leaving here with something. So we got to have that mentality that we're going to leave here with something. And I think we're really looking forward to it. And the great thing about it, we love coming in here as teammates and just playing the game that we love. This is a really unique locker room, and we're looking forward to the challenge.
I love Denzel Washington. I've seen many of his movies. He's a fantastic actor. The meme that Terry McLaurin referred to there, this might not surprise you, as if you listen to me, you know how tragically unhip I am. So I had to do a little research on this. He talked about a meme where Denzel Washington says, "I'm leaving with something." And so I found where this came from, the origination of this. This was an interview that Denzel did with Jamie Foxx, and this is the derivation of what Terry McLaurin referred to there as "I'm leaving with something," and it's not bad.
Let me tell you a Sean Connery story.
Uh-oh.
He was up for the Untouchables. I was up that year for, I think it was Cry of Freedom. And he comes out to present an award and got a 3-minute standing ovation for presenting an award.
Wow.
I went to get the coats. I was going to get the coats because I know I ain't winning tonight. So now we're leaving. I'm leaving without the Oscar, right? But as I'm leaving, I see the back of where they're doing getting the meal ready, the food ready for the governor's ball. I see a big tray. I'm like, I'm leaving here with something. You know what I mean? I'm from around the way. I'm leaving with something. Then my mother told me to get the flower arrangement. It's a true story.
Way to go, Mom. Can you imagine Denzel Washington, who is paid millions of dollars for every movie that he makes, one of the most marketable stars in Hollywood, backing up a to-go bag from the food that they're going to serve everybody, and his mom goes, "Oh, yeah, get the flowers too." He says it's a true story. I don't know, but that's pretty good. So I guess that's where that meme comes from. I'm leaving here with something. And Terry McLaurin, with 3 games to go, I guess is leaving with, I guess he hopes, wins. They are 6.5-point underdogs on Saturday against Philadelphia. I would very much expect them to be underdogs when Dallas comes here on Christmas Day, and then depending on what Philadelphia has to play for in the final game of the season in Philadelphia, I would think that they'd be underdogs as well. But that's where that comes from. So if that is ever referenced again, now you know something. Hopefully you've gotten something of an education here from me this morning. Nationals. Nationals aren't exactly making a splash as they did in 2011 when they got Jason Worth on a 7-year, $126 million deal, which now seems quaint, but it was a sign to the rest of baseball that after being in town here for 6 years, they were ready to attract free agents. And so they had to get somebody that would get the attention of others, and giving out a $126 million deal 14 years ago was significant. They're not doing anything close to that now. And the moves that have been made, they made a trade for catcher Harry Ford. They sent closer Jose Ferrer to Seattle. Ford is a great catching prospect, but he's not going to go anywhere in Seattle where their best player plays catcher. They also signed a Rule 5 player, meaning that because he's buried in the minor leagues, they can bring him in, Griff McGarry. So they're bringing him in from the Phillies organization. And they also, in free agency, signed for $5.5 million a reliever who's been pitching in Japan named Foster Griffin, who I couldn't tell from Foster Brooks. But this is from the Washington Times story on this. No MLB insiders have tied Washington to any of the potential 9-figure deals this offseason. Free agents like shortstop Bo Bichette, third baseman Alex Bregman, outfielder Cody Bellinger have been tied to big spending teams like the Yankees, the Mets, the Dodgers, and the Blue Jays. Just up the road, the Orioles signed Pete Alonso to a 5-year, $155 million deal. They're not doing anything like that. And from what the speculation is, they're looking to deal players who appear to have bright futures here. That tells you that this is going to be a grab a Snickers situation. ESPN is reporting the Nationals have had conversations about trading C.J. Abrams and Mackenzie Gore to the Royals and another team, according to ESPN. So this is not going to be a 2 or 3 year deal, even though they got some young players here. And I would think that you would want to keep a Mackenzie Gore and a C.J. Abrams. I mean, you got to have shortstop, you got to have starting pitching, but that's where this is. So it sounds like it's going to be a long-term deal, and the fact that the front office is all guys who are barely shaving, I think tells you that if you think this is going to be back to a contending team in 2 or 3 years, only some incredible luck is going to make that happen, because the latest from the very young general manager, or now actually he's not the general manager. Paul Taboni is the president of the team. So we now have a general manager. Taboni, the president of the team, he's 32. His manager is Blake Butera, who's 33, has never managed above A ball. And the general manager of the team, his name is Ani Kalambi. He was a former assistant GM with the Phillies. So the top lieutenants in this organization to a 32-year-old president or a 32-year-old GM and a 33-year-old manager. I think those are the two most important positions under team president. And I don't know, you'd like to have at least some input from people who've been around. I mean, these pitchers who grew up with the Moneyball philosophy. I know that they played college baseball, and there's some of that there, but it just seems to me that you'd want to have input from an older person. You can't have a bunch of kids running around the. I know I sound like an old man screaming at the clouds, but it just every time you turn around, you find out that the Nationals hired some kid. Now let's recognize what 31 years old means. This is the end of 2025. So 30 years ago would be 1995. 1995 sounds like yesterday. 1995, the Redskins then were in their second to last year of the stadium at RFK. In many ways, that may sound old to you, but this is the entire lifetime of these guys. I mean, I wonder if you have to walk in the room and say, hey, any of you guys know who Henry Aaron was? Anybody ever heard of Sandy Koufax? I don't know. They've forgotten more about baseball than I'll know. It just seems that every time you hear about the Nationals, it's that they're hiring somebody who's under the age of 30, or around 30, or just over 30. You would seem that you'd want a variety of voices around. That's all I'm saying. I really like Mike Rizzo. Mike Rizzo, I think, is over 60 now, and I'm sure, had some younger people around him. But there is something to be said for experience. I would hope that there's some voices in there that aren't just of this generation. They aren't not an entire team of millennials. That's just my feel on that. All right, coming up, we will get to what Robert Griffin III said yesterday on the Dan Patrick Show. I have been very critical of him over the years, but I was very interested in his insight, and I think he gave an answer to a question that few have had any answers for. Not that his is the gospel, but it's another side of this that I hadn't thought about. We'll get to that next. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
There is a common narrative that Robert Griffin III's career was curtailed by the knee injury that he suffered in the playoff game against Seattle at the end of his rookie year, which would have been January of 2013. And he did go on to play a couple more years here and played for 3 years with the Baltimore Ravens, played a year with the Cleveland Browns, but he did not have anywhere near the career that most thought he would have after that incredible rookie year, which was one of the most amazing seasons for a quarterback, much less a rookie quarterback. He ran for 850 yards, 20 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions. He was remarkable. And there was a feeling like, oh, wow, we're going to be watching this for the next 10 to 15 years. Well, we didn't. It flamed out. That's not why his career didn't work out. He suffered a pretty serious knee injury, but he's not the first and not the last to do that. His downfall was that he didn't want to put in the time that you're seeing Jaden Daniels put in the tape room. I mean, I've talked to enough people about this that they said he did enough. Doing enough is not enough. You have to really the mental game is such a big part of this. And I'm going to use this as an example. It's not the be-all, end-all. But remember, in that 2012 draft, they took Robert Griffin III in the first round, second overall pick, traded 2 number ones to move up to get him. And Kirk Cousins was available in the 4th round. And Mike Shanahan went, well, we got a higher grade on 4th round on him. We're going to take him. And they took him. And that set in motion a lot of insecurity for Griffin, like, why take another quarterback? And Mike Shanahan had to name RG3 the starting quarterback for the year, the first day of rookie minicamp, because he sensed the insecurity. And as the season went on, Griffin got hurt in that game against Baltimore, where he collided with Haloti Ngata hyperextended his knee, tried to limp back in the game. Finally, Cousins came in and won the game in overtime. Started the next week against Cleveland, which really set off a round of insecurity. And at that point, Griffin thought, as he sat with his dad, they believed that Mike Shanahan was trying to tank his career, get him hurt, so he could play his favorite Kirk Cousins. Believe me, that this has been confirmed to me by a number of people. So this is not wild speculation. And that led to Robert Griffin, going through the rest of his career thinking he could snap his fingers and become Aaron Rodgers. Didn't work that way. Didn't put in the time to do it. Spent the offseason rehabbing, did a great job of rehabbing, made a video that was sponsored by Gatorade, all in for week one. It was all about that. But you never heard, oh, yeah, he's there 5:30 in the morning watching tape. You never heard that about him. And Kirk Cousins was a tape nerd. And now Kirk Cousins is still playing in the NFL. He's not going to be in the Hall of Fame either, but he's still playing, and he's made more money playing football than Tom Brady did. And this is just an example of when you watch football and you think you know a little bit about the game, you don't know what you don't know. And the other day, Kirk Cousins was asked about playing the position and gave a 2-minute tutorial, which will make your head spin. You won't understand any of this, but I want to play this so you'll get the complexity it takes to play quarterback in the NFL at a high level.
So I came into the league, even at Michigan State, it was you see coverage and you pick a side and you basically take 5 eligibles down to 2, down to your check down. And so you cut the field in half, and it was, I got single high, I'm going, outside the red line to inside to my back. And you're really only thinking about 3 eligibles because the other 2 over here were meant for split safety, and I got single high. And so it kind of protected you. And then sometimes you would alert that other side if you got pressure. So you'd be like, I'm working this route versus split safety or pressure. If I get single high, no pressure, then I work the other side. So that was, everything was, single high, split safety, pressure, quarters, off, bump, man zone, all these things. But what happened was defenses got so good at disguising it that I would be so stressed going into games going, the whole game plan is built on, is it single high or split safety? And I can't see if it's single high or split safety. Like, these defenses are just making it muddy until I'm 3 steps into my drop. So coaches started to realize, like, if we ask the quarterback to do that, it's going to be really hard because defenses know that's the game we're playing. They're not going to let us play it. So then it started to become, let's just give you pure progressions and let's just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then, that has its pros and cons. I remember when Kevin O'Connell was bringing a lot of pure progression reads back to him with me from LA back to Minnesota, it was like, whoa, like I got to get back to the dagger backside after already exhausting this progression. Like, that's a lot. I mean, in my mind, like, I'm used to kind of simplifying it and cutting the field in half. So, had to kind of work through that and get to where that was more natural. And then there's a lot of positives of it too, where you're not stressing as much during the week about what if I can't see coverage, because you say, well, it's okay, I don't have to see coverage. Seeing it can be a benefit, but it's more after the snap, where are they going, and I can just kind of progress through. But there's no doubt with the way the pass rush is, if you truly try to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're going to get sack fumbled a lot. So there's still a level of, yeah, it's pure progression, but like I got to rule him out pretty quick here so I can get to the backside because that guy's coming around the hump quick.
Got all that? Yeah, unless you played or coached at a really high level, most of that went over your head, I'm sure. It went way over my head. And I just wanted to play that because that's what you need to know to play quarterback in the NFL. Not that Robert Griffin doesn't understand that and could probably listen to that and decipher all that, but it's the ability to process it that quickly in your mind because you've studied it so well. You know it so well, and you just didn't get that. He was relying a lot on his athletic ability and instinct when he came into the league, and it was set up that way with the pistol offense that they came up with, the Shanahans, when he came in the league. They said, look, he never had a playbook at Baylor. They had, like, signs that they would show, like, an apple and an orange and Madonna on the sideline, and you'd figure out what the play was, but it wasn't complicated. This is high-level stuff, and Kirk Cousins understands that. That's why he's still in the league right now. That's why Phillip Rivers can come off his couch at 44 and play, because he can process like that. They know the game. That's what it's all about. So the narrative that RG3's career ended because of the injury, I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. But I will say this, and this impressed me yesterday. He was on the Dan Patrick Show, and he's been booted out of ESPN. He had like a 5-year deal, and I guess they got rid of him at the end of last season. He's with Fox. I don't know if he worked out a buyout or however it worked, but he's back on TV. He's done at least one pro game, done some college games for them. He's got his own podcast that he does with his wife. I frankly haven't listened to it, but it was on to talk about the turf. Dan's been talking about this last couple of days, that the NFL is trying to put in standards for turf, whether it's the artificial turf or whether it's grass, but it's got to be at a certain level because of the incredible number of injuries that we've had this year. Just most recently, the injury to Patrick Mahomes, the ACL and the MCL, which is going to put him out for probably part of next season, and Micah Parsons of the Packers, who also tore his ACL, who knows how long he's going to be out next year. And we've been looking for reasons for it. Why is this happening? Why have we had so many ACL injuries this year, particularly to high-profile guys, Zach Ertz here? And why have there been Achilles injuries like we've had, including Daniel Jones, who was having a spectacular year with Indianapolis? And I really hadn't thought of this, but this probably is one of the reasons, and it's articulated very well here by RG3. Talks about could be the shoes.
The thing that was always said when I was growing up was bigger, faster, stronger, right? Well, the bigger and the faster and the stronger you become, the more force you're putting into the ground. So if your shoes, which the shoe companies have kind of gone towards this boost technology, right? And it almost feels like you're wobbling sometimes when you walk in those shoes, and they're terrible to cut in. Well, that technology has also bled into the cleats. So I don't know if the shoes are as good as they were, but they'll tell you that they have more traction.
Yeah.
So now if you have a bigger, faster, stronger athlete like a Micah Parsons who runs a 4.4, probably a 4.3, and he's every bit at 250 pounds, and his shoes have more traction on a surface that is built for traction, you're going to see more torn ACLs and more torn Achilles. And we're seeing that across all sports, not just football, also in basketball. Some of the biggest stars are having injuries that we didn't necessarily see from the Michael Jordans and the Magic Johnsons back in the day. So I think it's a combination of the surface as well as the athletes getting bigger, faster, and stronger, and it's kind of working against each other.
I have no idea if that's the case, but that is something I never thought of, and he's right about the NBA. We're losing more and more stars, and it seems like it starts out as a calf injury. They try to play through it, especially when they get to the finals. This goes back to Kevin Durant several years ago. And it results in a torn Achilles. They're out for the year. Could it be the shoes? Maybe it is. I don't know. Now, yeah, sometimes they've been wrong about these things. Like Michael Jordan broke his foot in his second year, and people went, those fancy Air Jordan shoes, they don't give you the protection. Well, if you're my age, not that I could jump over a credit card, but if you're my age, you grew up wearing Chuck Taylors, which were now, nothing more than like rubber soles and canvas sides. Like high school girls wear them for fashion now. But those were state of the art then. So I don't know, and as it turned out, Michael Jordan didn't have any problems with injuries the rest of his career. But that could be something. He could be on to something there. And again, I had not thought about that. Now, this is Dan continuing with the interview, and I'd like to get a chance to talk to him about really what happened here. Dan is going to make it seem like the injury that ended his season, ended that game against the Seahawks in 2013 in the playoff, was because he hurt his knee in that game. Fact of the matter is, it was the game, I think it was Thanksgiving weekend, that Griffin got hurt against Baltimore when he collided with Haloti Ngata and his knee hyperextended. And when I saw the play on the field in slow motion, I said, season over. Torn ACL. It wasn't a torn ACL, but it was a strained MCL. And I talked to an orthopedic surgeon who worked with professional teams, and he said to me, that is a 4-week injury. Griffin got back after 1. If you remember, he was kind of limping around against Philadelphia. His passing numbers were not great. It was just over 100 yards. Alfred Morris had a big game. And then in what turned out to be a division title game against the Cowboys, last game of the season, the Sunday night game, Alfred Morris ran for 200 yards. I mean, he was still playing on a bad wheel. early in that game against Seattle. And if you remember, he got knocked out of bounds. He came limping back to the huddle, and he re-injured his knee. He said, "Oh, the brace got pushed down." It wasn't that. But there was also some NFL Films video where he's telling Trent Williams, "Hey, I hurt my knee. Don't tell anybody." So reality was he was hurt going into that game. He was playing hurt. And Dan Snyder was the owner of the team, and he hired Dr. Beanie, the big orthopedic surgeon, to Dr. Andrews, to be his guy, and they cleared him, and there was a question whether or not he was cleared from Shanahan. I mean, the whole thing was a mess. So it's not exactly as Dan portrays it here, but this is the question about RG3's own knee injury.
When you go back to that January 2013 playoff game against Seattle, and you got injured on that surface, did you sue the Washington? Did you sue your owner at the time?
I did not, Dan. Do you have any lawyers that
is the statute of limitations up? Because I mean,
I don't know. I think it is.
I mean, that's malpractice, isn't it? With a field as bad as that. I mean, that was embarrassing, that field.
Yeah, and there's so many guys that have been hurt on that field, and that was actually grass or sand, whatever you want to call it. You could see the dust flying up every time people were running fast on that field. So I didn't, at that time. I think a large part of it was it's really hard to sue the owner or sue the league and still play in the league. But if there's maybe there's a lawyer out there who can claw back that statute of limitations, and I probably wouldn't be the only guy that would want to be interested in that, because there's a difference between just having grass or turf and really terrible grass and really bad turf. So I think the league is going to continue to see this happening from an injury standpoint. And if they don't mandate what the teams actually have to use and what company they need to use to have the right type of grass that's going to be the best possible for the players, you're going to continue to see top level players go down, and I know the league doesn't want that.
To be fair, that field was a mess. He's right about that. The field was a mess January 2013 when they played Seattle. I think the kicker, Stephen Hauschka, got hurt on it as well, and his season was over because of that. But that wasn't the reason for the injury. And if there had been a lawsuit, it would have been very easy to defend, because they would have called up the trainer and said, what was the condition of Robert Griffin III's knee going into that game? Oh, really? Oh, okay. And they would have the tape, the sideline tape from NFL Films of him telling Trent Williams, "I hurt my knee, don't tell anybody." He stays in the game until it finally blows out, and it was a non-contact injury, but the ligament was hanging by a thread. So that's really the story on that. But you do want to have good fields. They've already changed the field here once. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you this: they had changed the field while the Commanders were playing that game in Madrid, and they had the bye week in between, so they had a couple of weeks to put it in. Well, that Sunday night game that they played against Denver, it was a brand new field that they put in, and it was not totally tight. They were slipping all over the place, kind of like the Super Bowl a few years ago. So getting these fields right is not that easy, not easy to do. And then this is the old hindsight, and I've heard Griffin say this before. He said, I really should have taken the next year off. Well, that wasn't going to happen either, because he was very insecure about Kirk Cousins taking his job. So that was all about the all-in for week one thing, that he wasn't going to let anybody else play quarterback if he could help it. So this is Griffin explaining to Dan that if he had it to do over again, that he would have sat out the 2013 season.
I look at it from a standpoint because of my own experience, and these guys aren't me, but I tore my ACL and my LCL, the same injury that Patrick Mahomes has right now, and I wouldn't have played in 2013 if hindsight, which it is 2020, I wouldn't have played the following year because I wasn't back to myself yet. And Mahomes is a guy that runs around, is very creative, and is a great second reaction quarterback, and he can play from the pocket. But I would advise them to not play next year so that when they come back in 27, they can truly and fully be themselves, and it won't knock off years from their career. Now, I say that knowing very well, Dan, I've got, sources pretty close to the situation there that Mahomes is all in for week one. And we've seen Micah say that he's all in for week one as well. And It's because as players, we are wired to have this gladiator mindset that we can overcome anything, and we're not normal. But at the same time, I would advise them to sit out the following season because of when they got hurt. And then you can play for another 10, 15 years once you're fully back to health. Do I think that's what's going to happen? No. I think they're going to come back and they're going to play week 1 because that's how we're wired. And the only people that can really protect them is the teams.
Does it matter that it's the left knee for Mahomes?
Yeah, so mine was the right, which is the hip through knee, as they would say it. The left knee, it becomes concerning because now most guys will wear a brace on that knee. A lot of times we get hit, offensive linemen, that's the leg that is straight for the most part. Sometimes when you're throwing the football, though it shouldn't be, from a full technique standpoint. But I think if it was the back knee and him pushing off, it would be more concerning. So I think the left knee makes it a little bit better, but it also raises the risk for re-injury because of the style of play in the NFL and those big guys falling into you.
That's about as good an appearance as I've ever heard from Robert Griffin III. Very, very insightful there with Dan Patrick. And, the standpoint of the Chiefs, it probably would be in their best long-term interest if they do convince Mahomes to sit out, maybe not all of next year, but make sure he's 100% healthy. And you can't really say this to the rest of the team, but it would be kind of like a reset year, that they would not be a playoff team again next year. They would continue to load up in the draft. The higher you pick, the better off you're going to be. Some salaries come off the books. Like, I can't imagine that Travis Kelce's going to come back next year and players like that. And by the time Mahomes is healthy for the 2017 season, maybe they've reloaded enough to make another run. I think that makes – will it happen? No. And that's all part of the marketing machine, too. You can't have him disappear for a year, and with the State Farm and all the other stuff he does. But, in this case, Griffin is right. He's right about that. And I also believe he's right about the fact it's not going to happen, that he's going to want to get back onto the field. But take it from somebody who learned the hard way. And given that there was an owner who was frothing at the mouth about RG3, it wouldn't have taken much to convince him that it's a risk, but he's going to come back and play because you got to get people got excited about going to games again. Remember, this is 2012 when Griffin comes along. There hadn't been much excitement there since Joe Gibbs had left after the 2007 season. So we're talking 5 years. You had to go through the Zorn years, the 2 ridiculous Zorn years, and the first couple of years of Mike Shanahan were rebuilding type of years. They, at one point they were playing John Beck and Rex Grossman at quarterback. The Donovan McNabb thing had failed. So by the time RG3 came along in 2013, people got excited again, and they weren't going to lose that momentum. So you would have had the owner pushing for it too. Hindsight, as Steve Spurrier said, is 50-50. All right, coming up, more on the college football playoff, which gets underway tomorrow night. I don't know if you're ready for this, but that gets going. Greg Sankey, who's probably the most powerful person in college football, talked to Rich Eisen yesterday, and we'll get to some of that conversation next. Do we really need 41 bowls? No, we don't. So why are there so many bowls? I actually found sort of an answer to that. Well, the answer to everything regarding that is money, but just how much money is involved in one of these games that you tune over to where 4,000 people are in the stands and you barely heard of the 2 schools. It's one of those things like, if it wasn't working, they wouldn't do it. So the bowls, which were at 18 30 years ago, have more than doubled, and there's a reason for it. And the reason is, with most things, money. And we'll get to all of that coming up. Also, Mel Kiper with some interesting insight on the quarterback race as we head down the stretch and the playoffs, which, by the way, start tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, Oklahoma and Alabama, 8 o'clock on ABC. The winner goes to the Rose Bowl to play Indiana. How do I know that? My son already has his tickets as a proud Indiana graduate with his buddies. They're meeting up at the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day to watch Indiana play the winner of that game. And then you got a triple header tomorrow, and they're up against the NFL. And there's a big game tomorrow night or Saturday night where the Packers are playing the Bears, essentially a division title game, and that's going to be faced in the college football playoff by Oregon and James Madison, which is on TNT and True TV and HBO Max. That has real blowout potential, so I'll be real curious, the interest in that going up against an NFL game. Then the later afternoon game on Saturday, Ole Miss against Tulane. Yeah, okay. And then the noon game, Texas A&M against Miami. That could draw a little bit of interest, and they get out of the way for the NFL with the Commanders playing the Eagles at 5 o'clock. And then we get going again on New Year's Eve with Ohio State playing the winner of Texas A&M and Miami, and then that will segue into New Year's Day, which should be the day the national championship is decided, as far as I'm concerned, but doesn't work that way anymore. Texas Tech will play the Oregon James Madison winner in the Orange Bowl at noon. Then the Indiana-Oklahoma game. The actual time moved up, usually 5 o'clock. Now it's going to be 4 o'clock. And then Georgia will play the Ole Miss Tulane winner in the Sugar Bowl, which is New Year's night. And then we get to the Fiesta Bowl January 8th. The Peach Bowl, which would be January 9th. That's a Thursday and Friday. And then the national championship game in Miami on January 19th. So that's the whole rollout. Meantime, you got all these cockamamie bowls, the Pop-Tart Bowl, the Duke Mayo Bowl, and you go, what are they doing with all these bowls? Well, there's apparently a reason for this, and this is a story from USA Today as to the reason for it, and they talk about the CW network. You may not even know you have the CW network. They also televise Live Golf, and they have done 2 bowl games in their entire history. The Arizona Bowl in 2023 and 2024, and the game last year attracted 567,000 people, which ranked last among all the bowl games, but a terrific audience for CW. So they want more bowl games. They like the bowl games. And this year with 41 of them, that, of course, includes 6 that are part of the college football playoff. That's up from 18 bowl games, 95, 96, 28 just 20 years ago, 2005, 2006. All but 3 of those 41 bowl games will be televised by ESPN or ABC, both owned by the Walt Disney Company. So clearly, this is good business for Disney. Here's how cockamamie the money gets. The Holiday Bowl in San Diego. And at one year, the Holiday Bowl actually decided the national championship. 40 years ago, this is how quaint it was, that BYU, as an undefeated team, played a 6-5 Michigan team in the Holiday Bowl. And because BYU finished the season undefeated, winning the Holiday Bowl, they were declared national champions. Well, now there was some talk about moving the game to Saudi Arabia for more money. They didn't do it. The L.A. Bowl opened the major college bowl season December 13th. So what's today? 18th, 5 days ago. And they haven't decided yet whether they will continue. The attendance at some of these games is insane. I mean, you turn it on. Is anybody in the stands? No. But there's television money in this. Notre Dame deciding not to play a bowl game. That supposedly cost ESPN something like $500,000. The Big 12 Conference issued a $500,000 fine to Iowa State and Kansas State for deciding not to play. And here's how low they have to go to get teams. They don't have enough teams with 6 wins. So Mississippi State, Appalachian State, and Rice at 5 and 7 are playing in bowl games. Again, there's money in that. 11 of the 82 teams have records of 6 and 6, and 3 are 5 and 7. That's the meh bowls, right? I mean, you really want to see a 6 and 6 team play a 5 and 7 team? Yeah. But here's, again, the reason. ESPN started buying bowl games in 2001 when it purchased the Las Vegas Bowl. By 2006, it increased its portfolio to 5. And they kept buying them. It's good business. For example, and if you like college basketball, these numbers may surprise you. ESPN Events owned the Bahamas Bowl. That's what it's called. ESPN Events. They own the Bahamas Bowl, which drew only 4,600 fans for their last game last year when Buffalo beat Liberty 26-7. That was the lowest audience in Bahamas Bowl history, but it still got an average audience of 1.4 million or 1.14 million, according to Nielsen. By contrast, big college basketball game that night between Michigan and USC got an audience of 540,000. So half for a big college basketball game, a Bahamas Bowl drew twice as many people. In addition to the bowl games, ESPN will also televise 2 of the first-round playoff games, plus the national championship. So there's huge money in that. I'll get to the price tag on that in a second. And, some of these bowls, I've been to some of them. I've been to the Pinstripe Bowl at Yankee Stadium. I saw Indiana play Duke. That was kind of cool. I went to the Gator Bowl over 20 years ago because Maryland was in it, and I said to my son, they're never going to get in a better bowl than that. Let's go to it. And we did, and we had a good time. Had a good time doing that. But here's the price tag that ESPN is paying for these playoffs, and it must be worth it to them. They paid $7.8 billion from 2026, so that'd be this year, through 2032. So what is that, 6 years? Over $1 billion a year. And they talk about, what these bowls make. The Sugar Bowl in New Orleans, which will be played as a playoff quarterfinal January 1st, is owned by a local nonprofit. It had a budget surplus of $6.4 million in 2024 when Washington beat Texas in a playoff semifinal. The game's executive director, Jeff Hundley, earned $983,000 in compensation that year, the most recent year available. So, you may tune it on and go, what? And I always call it the Yule log of this season because every time you turn on ESPN, there's some bowl game that you'd never heard of with teams that you may not be familiar with. But the reason is ESPN draws an audience. People watch these games. Seems insane, but they watch it, and it's big money. Now, as far as the playoff goes, I think the most influential person right now in college football is the commissioner of the SEC, Greg Sankey. And he was on with Rich Eisen yesterday discussing the pros and the cons of everything that's going on at this time of year and the frustration that he is dealing with right now involving everything that's going on in college football.
I'd say frustration levels are higher than maybe we've experienced because as we walk through the economic opportunities provided to young people, the transfer opportunities, the timing of coaching changes, which relates to the bigger calendar. So when we're talking about macro, those are some of the frontline issues. You saw disagreement over college football playoff selections. That has occurred for years. What's interesting now is rather than argue about like 4 and 5, like a couple of years ago, we're arguing about 11, 12, 13, and 14. The issue of needing to make decisions and kind of put some of those balls that are bouncing around or that are up in the air that we're juggling, put them back on the rack, if you accept that metaphor, I think is really important to mitigate that frustration. So I think there's, it's the best of times and the worst of times at each moment in football right now.
Well, to me, the way I look at it, and when you say, hey, we used to argue about who's 4 and 5 and 6, now it's just lower down. And if the college football playoffs do expand, we'll talk about, 15, 16, 17, or who knows how many it can get to. The thing that I think is that there's not enough rules that need to happen, and then the rules that are happening need tweaking, as you pointed out, about when players are allowed to hit the portal, coaches needing to make decisions about their futures right at the outset of playoffs. And my question is who's going to when can we actually corral these things, Commissioner?
I'll be happy to corral these things myself, but let's go back and understand the why that we're here. So fundamentally, let's just take Oklahoma and Alabama Friday night. Mm-hmm. What the young people on our teams ask is to know that the people across the line of scrimmage are held to the same standards that they're held to. So not having this universe be governed on a state-by-state basis. Now that started in 2019 with NIL-related legislation, progress to 2021 when it all accelerated. We then have a set of court decisions that have, to a certain extent, governed our ability to make our own decisions around transfer rules. The same with length of eligibility. The same with seasons of eligibility and how those are calculated. So I saw yesterday somebody's looking for year 7 or 8. And those are all different elements that are imposed externally. Now, how do you corral, using that word, those issues internally? That is the essential challenge. And it's not that there's not motivation to make decisions. It is, what can you control? So what decisions might we make on a conference basis? What has to be decided on a national basis? And in what structure can that set of decisions be protected?
So let's take it, I guess, if you will, if you don't mind, one at a time, because just in recent days, let's just start again with coaches that can be bought out. You know, that a coach can be bought out. In a perfect example is what's happening in your conference. I mean, the video that I was showing the day that Lane Kiffin left for Ole Miss, putting it on the screen. I mean, I'm sure you don't want fans showing up at an FBO cursing out a coach as he walks onto a private jet sent by one member school to take him from another member school. $3 million exchanging hands between member schools. Would you be up for having contracts where coaches aren't allowed to be bought out? Period. End of story.
Well, I don't know that that's reality. But let's go back to the warning that I provided a decade ago, which was by making recruiting decisions a December event rather than a February event. We have moved from the day when Nick Saban was hired at Alabama, that happened in early mid-January, back in 2007, 2008, to every head coaching position that was open being decided in late November and early December. So it's not about one circumstance. And keep in mind, we had a set of we have 5 coaching openings as it happened in this league. And that will happen in other places. We force this calendar to make decisions early. Now, could you do that contractually? Sure. And we've had schools that have put, if you will, non-compete clauses in coaches' contracts within our league that limits their ability to just move. But what's the level of buyout that makes that sufficient? I think there are a set of factors that have to be understood. If we move that recruiting to a different time frame where you could promote coaches' stability, seems to me that's something we can actually control first rather than every individual contractual relationship.
Well, I guess, again, I keep extrapolating it out to professional football, since it does appear to be that's the way we're working. Like, there's no way the Giants should be able to buy out Ben Johnson in the middle of his Bears season and say, we have an opening, we need you, and we need you now. Obviously, the calendar's different. And, you know, when I mean, like, it seems like it's being professionalized, I have this post, and again, I know this isn't your conference, but USC football earlier this week, they re-signed their quarterback, Jaden Mayava, and this looks like a free agent signing in the National Football League to announce that he's re-signed with his team. Now, the way the rules work, he has every right to enter a portal or anything like that, but do you feel that there needs to be some form of a contract for players where it's not a year-to-year thing, Commissioner Sankey?
There are contracts with players. In fact, there's at least one legal action that's been announced about non-fulfillment of a contract, others that have been rattled. And I think you're asking a question fundamentally about people honoring contracts. So go back to coaching changes.
Yes, sir.
What do those clauses allow? How are those presented? Even with the young people right now who populate our rosters, what do those contracts contemplate? They can do that directly through the revenue sharing or some of their name, image, and likeness activity. How far does it go? So people will advocate, well, collective bargaining is the solution, except that nobody's external rights in professional sports are governed within a collectively bargained agreement. So there are a set of issues here that are very different than just this direct, we've got 30 or 32 franchises and that template overlaid on a collegiate template solves every problem.
That is SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey. And to that point about quarterbacks coming back, I was at the Maryland basketball game on Saturday night against Michigan, and they trotted out Malik Washington to celebrate the fact that he's coming back. He went 4-8. Okay, he was good as a freshman, but they worked out the money because other teams were interested in him with at least 2 years of football left in him. You know, let's bring him in. So Maryland came up with the cash to do it, and here we are. You know, can you imagine that? That is a big announcement. Of course, he's coming back. He's got 2 more years before he go to the NFL if the NFL wants him. they got to announce that. All right, one more from Sankey, and this is about the college football playoff as it stands now. with 12 teams and where it may be going?
I think that the move to 12 was really well timed. There's some clunkiness to it because the model was introduced, remember, in 2021, and that was before we expanded with Oklahoma and Texas, before the Big Ten. There's been a domino effect. And we were slow to adapt in real time because we were slow to accept the 12-team idea. And I was part of the group that introduced 12. I think 12 was right. I think it was done at the right time. When we've talked as a league, we think the move to 16 is the next right step. That provides 11 at-larges. It honors conference champions. And I do expect there's going to be a lot of stress about the low-ranked conference champions that are in this thing right now because they've displaced some much more highly ranked teams. That's the point of controversy. And so I do think we have to continue to adapt. Our league has said 16 is the right next step, whether we can agree upon that or not. As a group in the college football playoff management committee, that remains to be seen.
Well, Rick Neuheisel, CBS analyst, he thinks it's going to go to 24. And these minor bowls that are being played now with all the players opting out of them, and sometimes – they're looking at their teams and they go, gee, do we even have enough to have a roster to put players on the field? So do them at the beginning of the year. That may be what happens. We may get to 24, and that will be your entire bowl season. That would probably make some more sense. And all these, Mayo Bowls and Pop-Tarts Bowls, they would move to August or September. Might happen. I got tomorrow off. Bram is coming up next, and I will see you back here on Monday morning at 9 a.m.